My name is Jakinda Boya. I'm a multidisciplinary artist based in Johannesburg. I was born here as well, lived most of my life here. I work across a variety of mediums, which include collage, painting, drawing, video, and performance. And I incorporate a variety of different materials, such as traditional ones like oil paint, acrylic paint, and I also incorporate more accessible materials such as inkjet prints and cardboard. I was struggling to think of a title for this exhibition when I first thought of it. So I just started thinking of phrases that I see all the time, when I'm just going through the city, because a lot of the work that I do is just inspired by the things that I see on the street. So I think Cash for Gold just stood out because my work is always interrogating like capitalism and politics and things like that. And that statement, Cash for Gold, it's like a common phrase that you see all around the city on signs, exchanging like jewelry for money, just like these quick transactions, to make quick money, because like this idea of just the socio-economic state that we live in, like you're always kind of fighting for your life every day. So it's like every day you're just like looking for like that next like transaction, and making money all the time. So I think that statement of survival within the city, I think it speaks to survival within the city and how basically everyone here is here for those opportunities, in order to survive. It's a city where people come for these opportunities, and people often say that Joburg is like a working city. It's not really a city you choose to live in. But I was actually born here, so for me, it's like all of this stuff is like normal. It's just what I'm surrounded by. And yeah, I guess the statement really speaks to that, and just how capitalism has kind of consumed all of us, and it kind of expresses itself in many different ways in our lives. I've always found the work that I see on the streets really cool. Like I've always, barbershop paintings, like graffiti and things like that you just see walking through the streets, of the CBD mostly. I've always found them very interesting and very like different to what you would see in like a gallery most of the time. And to me, they were just as interesting as what you would see in a gallery, but we place different value on the work that these people make on the streets and the work that gets put in the gallery. And I started reflecting on that and why, like who decides which works are high art and which works are low art. Because to me, like, I appreciated those works the same. And it wasn't even about the materials they were using at that point. They didn't necessarily need to use the most expensive materials to get their word across or their message across. Managing the contrast or the juxtaposition between luxury and the grittiness, I feel like that's a very like South African thing, a very Joburg thing, because the society is so unequal. And like I grew up very like kind of in the middle, like middle class, where it's like you kind of stretched in both ways, where it's like I remember I went thrifting once, like in Jersey, CBD by MTN. And I was walking with someone, and someone literally got mugged right next to me by like 5 people. And I was so scared, I thought I was next, And then I just carried on walking, minded my business. And then from there, we got on a Gautrain and went to Sandton. And just like that juxtaposition of where I just was, like someone just got mugged in the streets, there's piss on the floor, like it's Joburg. And then you go to Sandton, it's like a completely different world, but it's the same city, And I feel like you're constantly navigating those two worlds. And even in the art world, there's this distinction between high and low art, But who decides what's high art and what's low art? Who decides, what gets put in a gallery and what gets sold on the streets? I'm very inspired by the Dada art movement, and if you think about someone like Marcel Duchamp, who put a urinal on display in an art gallery. Like, if I did that, I would look crazy, you know what I mean? But it's like, who decides that that's art? And he kind of answered, he started those questions, that movement started those questions. And I feel like I'm kind of trying to add my statement in that sort of conversation of like value hierarchies and like who decides whose stories get told and what we deem to be valuable and what's not valuable. I always felt like there's this sort of Joburg energy that I wanted to express, whether visually or through sound. And I think that it connected with people quite early with music. And I think that I found a way to incorporate the visual element through things like music videos and performances and things like that. And then over time, I started to get more involved in visual, like the visual side of things. You know, I got a degree in film, so like I really got more into like visual stuff. And then I just went straight into like, you know, like more like fine art in that sense. You know, the work looked really interesting and I was like, oh, maybe I'm onto something interesting here. And then it started to develop its own meaning through that, because now it's about this idea of like, in order for me to get access into the art world, that's how I found my way, where like I didn't go to art school, I didn't follow like a traditional route, I'm not even using traditional materials. So that for me became like a narrative to explore. And then I continued to paint on cardboard and I did a bit on paper as well, did oil pastel drawings, started messing around with collage, just cutting things, you know, just messing around. Because at that point there was no pressure. No one really knew what I was doing. And then I put the stuff out on my Instagram and that's how I got to this point of my career where now I'm doing, you know, visual art, I guess. Yeah, and from there it's been growth, like slowly people are understanding what I'm doing, what I'm saying. So a lot of these works in this exhibition actually come from that era transitioning into where I am now in terms of when I started and where I'm at now. And I think it's a good representation of how my practice has evolved.